So in today's session of virtual onboarding of telling your story, we will be discussing the following. Today, you will leave with understanding the role of TVSSA funds, how storytelling can be used to report performance measures, with skills to effectively communicate your community story and track progress in PMT, and knowing how to navigate the PMT website with the use of features and submit accurate and timely reports. We are so excited to have Ashley Ellis, the Office for Victims of Crime Performance Management Coordinator, join us today to provide a deep dive presentation into PMT. You are more than welcome to get your PMT questions ready and enter them into the chat feature. Next slide, please. Again, welcome everyone. Before we begin, let's start with some introductions. Again, I'm Michelle. I am located here in Arizona, and I came from Direct Services as a Director of Services and a forensic interviewer. Now I am a TTA specialist with T-Vista, and it has been such a wonderful journey to serve from this capacity. Now, I would like to quickly turn it over to my colleague, Elsie, to formally introduce herself.
Everyone, hello. Yupil ko Aburin ako. My Yupik name is Aburin. I am Yupik from the village of St. Mary's, and I currently live in Anchorage, Alaska. And I too am a TTA specialist with T-Vista, and I'm really happy that you're all here. Payana.
Thank you so much, Elsie. Next slide, please. Now, we'd like to share a little bit more about our programmatic team, the Tribal Victim Services Training and Technical Assistance. Again, T-Vista for short. As a recipient of OVC funding, you have access to training and technical assistance at no cost to your programs through OVC designated technical assistant providers who are available to assist you with implementing your grant activities. T-Vista is a capacity building program for Alaska Native and American Indian communities. The T-Vista team is a blend of Native and non-Native professionals with over 100 years of combined experience in capacity building, victim services, program management, and community engagement.
Moving forward, OVC's Tribal Victims Services Set-Aside Formula Grant Program, TVSSA, provides support to tribal communities to enhance services for victims of crime through activities that address the needs of a wide variety of crime victims. This slide highlights how TVSSA funds help American Indian and Alaska Native communities expand services, reach new populations, and support advocates. One program shared that TVSSA funding not only increased the services offered, but also allowed them to address departmental needs like grant management and supervision. This freed advocates to focus on direct advocacy, enhancing support for survivors and victims on their healing journey. You will see that TVSSA funds can be used for a wide variety of activities. OVC grant managers are a partner to you in using TVSSA funding to support your relatives on their healing journey. TVSSA funds can be used for direct services to victims of crime, traditional healing practices. I'm not going to read all of these, but you can see on the slide that you can support for families of missing and murdered Indigenous persons, community outreach and education about crime victimization and available services. So this slide really underscores the importance of TVSSA funding in creating a sustainable and comprehensive support system for crime victims while addressing organizational needs to ensure long-term program success. So this slide outlines how OVC TVSSA grant recipients can utilize their funding to support efforts addressing missing and murdered Indigenous persons, MMIP. Grant recipients can provide financial assistance and emotional support to families of missing persons. You can conduct community outreach to educate about MMIP issues and produce materials such as billboards or flyers to raise awareness of specific cases. This may also, you may also collaborate with multidisciplinary interjurisdictional groups to develop response protocols, work closely with tribal, federal, state, and local officials on MMIP cases, and offer services to family members of MMIP victims. These activities aim to generate awareness, foster collaboration, and enhance support for families and communities affected by MMIP. Ashley from the PMT team will discuss in detail the reporting requirements in PMT.
Next, we will explore strategies for effectively capturing your community's story. This is a critical part of the performance measure report, enabling OVC to gain a deeper understanding of the unique characteristics of your community, your program, and victim services. We start off with the question, how are program successes measured? Performance measurement involves the regular collection of data to evaluate whether the program's goals, objectives, and desired outcomes are being met. This process provides both award recipients and the Office of Justice Programs, OJP for short, with a quantitative understanding of program progress and identifies the areas where additional support is needed. Now, to ensure effective performance measurement, a clear plan should be in place that identifies responsible individuals by name and their title and specifies where and how data is stored, whether it's a hard copy or electronic or cloud-based systems. Also defines how the data is used to evaluate the program's impact and outlines steps for accurate data reporting. These practices collectively help to ensure that program success is measured effectively and transparently. Resources are provided on the slide deck for those who may be new to reporting or may be experiencing staff turnover. Now, focusing on community needs is an important part of reporting. In the initial program narrative checklist or program narrative, there was a community need that was identified and how receiving funding would address that need. Reporting is an opportunity to inform OVC how success is being met, what new challenges are being faced, and it allows your program to share accomplishments being made in your tribal communities. This is the moment for programs to brag about all the great work that is being done. So let's explore what we call the roadmap for sharing program progress. This slide highlights 4 essential areas that I'm going to refer to as bullet points. Each bullet point listed will guide your grant reporting process. First, we start with analyze. This is the analysis of where we look at community information to help identify your key program milestones. The second bullet point is tracking. This is where we capture measurable outcomes to monitor advancements in services and support that is provided to victims. The third is reporting. This is the reporting on sharing your successes and progress along your journey. The last bullet is the collection of data to explain how the data shows the growth, changes, and areas of improvement. Together, these bullet points create a clear path for effectively telling your program story in a way that is descriptive and accurate. I will now turn it over to Elsie to speak about storytelling.
Thank you, Michelle. So how many of you remember listening to stories as a child? Like scary stories or ghost stories, stories about how to deal with challenges or life. Feel free to put that into chat. Um, I was recently at a gathering and we had some elders that were wanting to tell stories. So I remember a lot of stories growing up. But if you remember those stories, right? Many of the stories shaped our worldview. They had life lessons. We're all storytellers, right? Storytelling, if you go to the next slide, like storytelling is really a part of our indigenous cultures. And that's been passed down through generations. Stories, like I said, tell life lessons. Just like song and dance and drumming, storytelling is really an important part of the healing process. And storytelling is really, it's a powerful tool to talk about challenging situations and how to handle them, right? You can share stories. Basically, what you're doing, you're sharing these stories with OVC in the description of needs section of the TVSSA proposal narrative questionnaire. Okay, so you're storytellers. All right. So next slide. We're just going to take a few minutes to think about these questions um, and think about your tribal victim services that you provide. So think about what are the strengths in your community. Just take a moment to write that down, maybe. Just think about the strengths in your community. Could be elders, it could be that you come together, your culture, just thinking about your strengths. And then think about the challenges that your community is facing. What are those challenges? And then lastly, what would you like to do about those challenges? So let's talk about how you answer these questions. I'm wondering if anyone would like to come off mute and share. Or feel free to put it in chat. Doug, an asset is caring people. Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you, Doug. What else? How did other people answer this question? Just thinking about your strengths in your community and the challenges and what you would like to do about it. One of the strengths of the Reno Sparks Indian Colony is that it's access economic development specialists to give good advice to the colony. Thank you, Benjamin. One challenge we face is the Kenai Peninsula is too far spread out and lacks adequate transportation. Thank you, Sonia. Yeah. So I think these questions really, like just get you to think about, um, kind of like that roadmap that Michelle was talking about. Like, what are you wanting to do about these things, and how do you capture that and report it, right? So just thinking about. So I appreciate you thinking about these questions, and maybe you can continue to think about it and maybe have discussions with people in your community. But just thinking about how does that all tie together? And I'll turn it over to Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you, Elsie. So, as Elsie said, taking that moment and think of how this all ties together, you look at your program's strengths and challenges, and you share that story in your project period activities. And those get reflected into the PMT. Next slide, please. So each of you are here because you play an important role in the implementation of your TVSSA projects. Whether you have one TVSSA project or multiple projects, it is important to understand the building blocks. The pieces you see here are necessary for your understanding in what your project says that you will do and the steps you will take throughout the life of your project as you carry out the activities each project has identified. So sustainability. The project sustainability is crucial for victim service programs for several reasons, starting with the long-term support. Sustainable programs ensure that victims receive continuous and reliable support over time. This stability is essential for victims who may need ongoing assistance to recover and rebuild their lives. Next, we have community trust. Sustainable programs build trust within the community. When victims and their families know that services will be available when needed, it fosters a sense of security and reliability. The next piece is the resource management. Effective sustainability planning helps organizations manage their resources efficiently. This includes securing funding, building strategic partnerships, and ensuring that services are accessible to all who need them. By focusing on sustainability, victim service programs can continue to provide essential services, support victims effectively, and contribute to the overall well-being of the community. So looking on the outer pieces, each approved project or award includes a project narrative checklist, now known as the Proposal Narrative Questionnaire. Goals and objectives, deliverables, and a timeline. These pieces as a whole tells the story of your organization, the project, and the communities you serve, including their needs and challenges, how the project plans to address the needs and challenges, and when the activities identified in the project will take place. So in the event you face any barriers or challenges as you implement or carry out your project and work to meet the needs of your communities, just keep in mind that you do have access to programmatic and financial training and technical assistance providers to assist you along the way, as we mentioned here in the beginning of this presentation. Today, you'll have the opportunity to learn about the details of each of these pieces and including why they are important in implementing into your projects, where you can find them, and when to look to them throughout your project period. So now we will talk a little bit about the goals and objectives. So as we know, each project outlines the goals and objectives, and they can be found within the proposal narrative questionnaire. You may recall this being called a project narrative or a project narrative checklist in previous years. You want to plan to refer to the goals and objectives regularly throughout the project period to gauge the progress toward meeting them. It's also very helpful to have a copy of your goals and objectives, as you will be reporting on the status of each goal and objective in the PMT. So goals help to create order from chaos. I want you to think about the communities you serve and think of all of the challenges and needs of the communities, and then imagine what would take to resolve all of them. There are likely a lot of different needs and challenges that require a number of resources and actions to even begin working to resolve them. And without a guide or a plan, it can easily become overwhelming. The good news is that you do have a plan. The goals and objectives have been developed to take smaller action steps to work toward meeting the needs and challenges of the communities and the people that you serve. So when you look at the project goals, what are you looking for? Essentially, you're identifying what you said you were going to do with the project and ensuring you are taking the steps that are outlined. You are also identifying if you're experiencing any challenges or any barriers to accomplishing your goals. So you can think of it this way. The project is like a road trip, and a well-defined goal is like the roadmap that tells you where you want to go. The objectives are the route you take, and they tell you how you are going to get there, and they serve as a milestone along the way to the final destination. And then you have the tasks, which are even smaller action steps. Each task is like a landmark. They are what you need to do to get there. As mentioned, and if you don't remember anything else about the goals and objectives, remember that the goals, objectives, and tasks identify the actions you take throughout the project period, and you will look to these regularly and ensure that you are working towards them, tracking your progress and any challenges or barriers you face as a result, and then you will take all of the information you have from that and report it on your performance reports.
So remember that we are all storytellers. If you could go to the next slide, please. By identifying the challenges and strength of your community and reflecting that in your narrative or checklist, you will be telling your story through progress reporting. This is your opportunity to highlight the unique contributions and achievements, showcasing the impact of your efforts. So, Guyana, so much for doing this work. So I will now turn it over to Ashley Ellis. Ashley, thank you.
Thank you, and hello, everyone. I am Ashley Ellis, the Performance Management Coordinator for OVC, and I'm really excited to be here and walk through all things related to performance measure reporting, both the system and the questions that you will be entering data on. So let's get started. Next slide, please. So what is performance reporting? This is the process that you go through when you report on your grant-funded activities to OVC on a regular basis. So this is really just an opportunity to tell your story in both a quantitative, so the numerical information, and qualitative through our semi-annual report narrative questions. A couple examples of how you would tell your story is how were the grant funds being used to provide victim support in your community? What partnerships were developed or enhanced for your organization's capacity? And what specific success stories you would like to share with OVC? And we all use all this information in a variety of ways. Next slide. So why is this important? It allows OVC to do the following. We track grant progress and outcomes. We identify success and opportunities. And again, we use these for different reports. Understand how your funds are being used in the community and ensure legal compliance. Next slide. So we use this to demonstrate the value and specific benefits of the program just based on the data that you are providing. And oftentimes this is to Congress, to federal and state government agencies, to the victim service field as a whole, general public, and other stakeholders. We love to emphasize the progress made towards your achievements of different strategic and program goals that OVC has. And we respond to a wide variety of data requests for a variety of audiences, again, including Congress and the White House, other federal agencies, the media, and the general public. And then how you can use your performance data to, again, share your story. There are a couple different ways. You can show your organizational capabilities and the way that you are serving victims and how that funding has supported the victim services you are providing. You can use the data to show how your organization is achieving your specific goals and objectives, which they mentioned earlier in this presentation. And it's also really beneficial to identify gaps or areas of opportunity that you are working towards. And all of that is used just based on the data that you're reporting as you look over it, whether it's just for a quarter of your reporting or for a year or 3 years. You can look over time and say, you know, here's where we saw an opportunity to serve more victims, or here's where we saw a new type of victimization coming through, and this is how we built out more of our victim services program. So those are just a couple ways that you can use your data to share and tell your story. Next slide, please. So right now we're going to talk about when and where to report your performance data. Next slide. There are 2 primary reporting systems, platforms that you will be using. First is the performance measurement tool, also known as the PMT. And this is a web-based reporting system that you can electronically submit both your narrative data and your quantitative data in the system. And the other system is the Just Grant system, which is more of the whole life cycle of your grant. And you will be uploading your performance measurement reports into Just Grants to fulfill those performance-related requirements. Next slide. So there are a couple different types of reports in the PMT. You have the quantitative performance measure report. And again, this is just the standard performance measure data on the activities that you completed. And we'll go over what those activities include a little bit later. Then we have the semi-annual narrative report. And this is more where you can expand on the details that talk about your progress towards your goals and objectives. And this is reported every 6 months compared to your quantitative data that is reported quarterly. Then we have the semi-annual PDF, and this includes 2 quarters of data, both the quantitative and the semi-annual narratives, and you will upload these semi-annual PDFs into Just Grants on a semi-annual basis. And then finally, we have the final closeout report. So this is the report at the end of the grant lifecycle that kind of covers the entirety of your grant and all the activities included. So that's more of a cumulative report that you will do at closeout. Next slide. So we have a couple different due dates and different systems that have requirements. So again, your quantitative data is reported quarterly, and you can see the different quarterly periods. We work on the federal fiscal year, so starting October 1, and the first quarter goes through December 31st, and then you can see every 3 months after that. We have our due dates that are in PMT, again, quarterly. And then when would you need to upload into Just Grants? This is, again, semi-annually on that Just Grants cycle. So you can see which data pieces are required. When is it only the quantitative data? When is it also including the narrative responses? And for those who are reporting on the missing and murdered Indigenous persons supplemental measures, those are located in Just Grants, and those are also on a semi-annual basis. Next slide. So the actual performance measurement tool can be located at this link on the slide. And the PMT team, once we get the information, we create an account for each grant recipient when you receive an award. And the initial access, and this is something important to remember, the initial access goes to the organization's point of contact listed in Just Grants as the grant award administrator. Now, this does not mean that if you are the grant award administrator that you have to be the person reporting the data in the PMT, but this is just the initial access, and that email for the PMT setup is sent to that POC specifically. So if you received an award and maybe you're the primary person for the data management or the reporting requirements, but you haven't received access to the PMT, double check who your POC is listed in Just Grants. So maybe it went to someone else that is working on this grant. And then you can just navigate from there. And we will talk about how to add other users. So it is not just one user. Whoever else is working on it and needs access to report data can have access, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The POC will receive an auto-generated email from the help desk with login instructions. If no one in your organization has received that email, maybe there's been turnover, maybe it went to or maybe the email address was entered incorrectly and just didn't get to you, please contact the PMT help desk and we will help you get that set up. And then if your organization has other OVC awards under different programs, the profile will include a separate tab for each program. So this will be listed under the Transforming Victim Services tab. Next slide, please. When you log into the PMT, this is what kind of the navigation menu will look like. There's a couple different tabs. So you see the OVC PMT home tab. So it's really general information about your rewards and the reporting schedule that I had just gone over. The administration tab talks about your federal award details and user information. The profile is the contact information for your organization and organization POC. Then we'll have your enter data, which is the data entry pages, your reports tab, that is where you can pull down all the reports you've completed. And then our need help is any resources for the PMT, and to log out of the PMT system is the last tab. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, you don't have to have just one POC. Multiple people can have access. You can have multiple users in your PMT tool. So what you'll do is you'll hover over the administration tab and click user management. This is what it should look like on your screen when you do that. You'll click the add new user button, and then you just fill out the required information, name, email, and phone number, and then that person will have access. Next slide. So there is a two-step semi-annual reporting process between the two platforms to meet your compliance in Just Grants. Next slide. So first, you will want to log into Just Grants and locate the performance report for that reporting period. And what you will be doing is uploading a PDF document that was downloaded from the PMT to the corresponding performance report in Just Grants under the attachment section. And we'll walk you through that right now. Next slide. So when you log into the PMT, again, we went over those different report tabs up top, and you will go to the reports tab. And under that tab, you will have the option to select your federal award number. So if you have multiple awards, you will just go to the corresponding award number that you're working on. If you only have one award, that's the only one that will populate. So you will select your award from the drop-down menu. And then once that is selected, you will see at the bottom, there are the different reporting periods, whether or not that data entry has been completed, when it was last modified, and then the reports that are produced both in Excel and every 6 months there will be a semi-annual PDF. Something to note here, if a report says under the data entry status that it is in progress, if you're looking for your semi-annual report and you're saying, I can't see this report anywhere, make sure that all of the data entry status for the corresponding semi-annual period have been labeled as complete, because sometimes if you've gone back, and sometimes you've gone back to revise some information, some data, change some numbers, or did not fully submit the report, and so it's not labeled as complete. If it's listed as in progress, that semi-annual PDF will not appear. So it's important that if you're not seeing your semi-annual PDF link, that you go to the data entry status and make sure that everything is complete on that end. And if you still don't see the semi-annual PDF link, then please contact the help desk and we can walk you through it. So again, this is where you'll find that semi-annual PDF, and you will download that and save it in a file that can be easily located. Next slide. Then you will go back to your Just Grants report. You will go under your funded award information under the performance management section, and again, find the corresponding performance reporting period. And once you select that, next slide, please. You will be uploading your PDF into that section. And so this is what the PDF on the left side, this is what it should look like when you're uploading your semi-annual PDF, and not on the right side, the Excel document, because there are options to download your Excel data, but it is not in the format that we want for our semi-annual reports. And it only typically includes one quarter of data and not the semi-annual time frame. So just making sure you're uploading your PDF, semi-annual PDF. If not, your grant manager might send back a change request for that. Next slide. So again, when you're in the corresponding performance report in Just Grants, you will go down, you will see there is a attachment section. And so that is where you can hit the upload button and upload that semi-annual PDF that you have downloaded, and then make sure that you hit submit at the bottom. And we have a link to walk through how to do that, completing a question set and submitting performance reports in Just Grants. Next slide. And just again, a reminder to click submit at the bottom right-hand corner after you attach your PDF report. Next slide. So some frequently asked questions we receive is, what does a grant manager do with the semi-annual PDF report when I submit it into Just Grants in January and July? Our grant managers review both the quantitative and narrative data section against your project goals and objectives to ensure appropriate use of funds and grant progress. And if they notice anything that seems misaligned, or if they notice any data that just seems out of the ordinary, they will often contact either us to double check some numbers, or might reach back out to you for a change request or to clarify why that information may or may not be lining up in the way it is expected. So that leads into our second question: why did my grant manager send my semi-annual PDF report back as a change request? And again, it's usually they've just identified an error or an issue that might need further explanation, or might need to be addressed. For example, you uploaded the Excel document and not the semi-annual PDF. That could be one of the reasons. Next slide. So if they do notice an error in your quantitative PMT report, how do you make edits to your report after you have received a change request? You will have to unlock your quarterly report to change the data. So to do that, you will need to contact the PMT help desk, and a representative from our help desk will help you unlock that report. And then, do I need to complete the PMT report if I did not conduct any grant-funded activities during the quarterly reporting period? Yes, every quarter you will have to complete a PMT report. However, if there is no grant-funded activity, it will look slightly different. So in the beginning of your question set in the PMT, there will be a question around whether or not there was any grant-funded activity occurring, and you will just select no. And the remainder of the questions will automatically be skipped. So if there was no grant funded activity, you still need to report into the PMT and just simply state that there was no grant funded activity, and it will bypass the rest of the questions. And then once you do have grant funded activity, you will say yes, and then it'll release the rest of the questions for you. Next slide, please. So now we're going to talk about the actual performance reporting and the questions that you will be reporting on in the performance measurement tool. Next slide. So only OVC funded activities should be reported, and all OVC grant funded activity conducted during the quarter should be included. And so again, we have those 3-month time periods, and it must be completed every quarter, even if there are no grant funded activities occurring. As I just mentioned, you can select no grant funded activity occurred. So you can see we have a number of different question sets that will show up in the PMT, and you can see we talk about collaborative partnerships, strategic planning, victim services, and then a couple sets of shared measures. So if you're responding to collaborative partnerships, there's a couple additional shared measures in the section, as well as planning activities, policy and procedure changes, and then you'll have your semi-annual narrative questions. And then there is the missing and murdered Indigenous persons supplemental measures in Just Grants, and we will talk about that in a few minutes. Next slide. So to enter data for grant activity, again, as I mentioned, in the beginning of your PMT reporting, there will be a couple questions. First, is this the last reporting period in which the report will have data? Up until your very last quarter of reporting, you will always say, no, this is not the last time that we were reporting data. And something to remember when you're getting ready to close out your award and it is the last quarter that you have grant funded activity and you know you're getting ready to close out, you will select yes, and that will trigger the PMT to create your final report. So that's one distinction. When you're getting to the end of the award and it's your last reporting period, you'll want to select yes, and that will trigger your final report and close out. And then again, was there grant activity during the reporting period? You will want to say yes, and that will release the rest of the questions for you to report on your activities. Next slide, please. So some of the questions might have baseline questions, and this is any activity that occurred before your grant was operational. And so this is typically before the first reporting period. So if you had partners that you partnered with before the reporting period started, you would put that there. And then we have sections for current quarter reporting. And you can see there's a drop down for that. And that is to report on the data that occurred during those 3 months of that reporting period. And that plus sign will reveal all of those questions. Next slide. And so again, this is what that current quarter reporting looks like. You'll see we have, for this example, it's under the training section, under the training tab up top, and there are questions around that, and you'll see where there are spaces for you to enter the numbers. And then you have the semi-annual narratives. And so there's a couple different things that we ask about in the semi-annual narratives. You can describe your adverse conditions that affected your goals and objectives. You indicate if your agency is on track to fiscally and programmatically complete goals and objectives on time and within budget. You can report goals and objectives for the next 6 months, ask for technical assistance, describe significant developments, and indicate if the program is sustainable after federal funds end. So there's a variety of narrative questions, and you can expand on your storytelling and any other information that's not quite captured when you're entering numerical data in the PMT. Next slide, please. A couple tips for the semi-annual narratives. It covers again, previous 6 months that are completed and the anticipated 6 months that are coming up. So you can use language like in FY 2021, Q3 and Q4, quarter 3, Q3 and Q4, we completed XYZ, and in the upcoming reporting period, we anticipate to complete XYZ. You'll want to answer the questions based on what you know at the time of reporting. And another great tip, especially when reporting in a system that could potentially time out, so you always want to save your work as you're progressing through your reporting, is you can create your responses in a Word document and then copy and paste it into the plain text section of the PMT. Again, be sure to frequently save your responses, and every question needs an answer. So as you're going through the PMT, when you get to the very end and you've completed all the different tabs of questions, there will be a review page. And as you go through, you can review all the answers you've input. And if you accidentally missed a question or skipped over something, it will indicate that it is required, and you can click on that and it'll take you to the question that you have missed or need to address any issues with the data before you're able to submit. So every question needs an answer before it will allow you to submit your PMT for it to be a complete data entry status. Again, if you don't finish or don't submit it, then it will say in progress. Next slide, please. Things to consider for the semi-annual narrative questions. Again, just talking with your team, what accomplishments were achieved? What are some areas of opportunity that were identified? Are there any changes that are occurring in your organization or on your team or on your staff? And how do you define in progress or not started when it comes to certain activities or working towards any of goals or objectives? And then you can review, like, are there any performance measures that should be addressed in the narrative responses? So maybe certain numbers look lower than previous quarters or higher than previous quarters that you've been reporting. And so maybe you want to expand on, some initiatives you took, or maybe some challenges that you came across that would have affected the numbers that you were reporting in the performance measure questions. Were there any increases or decreases in the data reported? And how far along is your project, and are you meeting your goals as expected? Next slide, please. So I'm going to pause right here because I know I've covered a lot of information and I saw a handful of questions coming through in the chat. Is there a limit of user accounts set up in PMT for our organization? No. You can add, or not that I'm aware of, but I believe you can add as many individuals as you need to that. And again, not everyone needs access to the PMT. It's really just those that will be reporting the data into the system. Let's see, has a TBSA last year? Does new access need to be given with this new award that started January 1st? Is it a continuation or like starting over? New awards should receive an email. I would check if you don't see that specific new award in your dropdown, like if you're looking at the different awards in the information tab on the different awards, because you will be able to see all the different awards. If it's the same POC, you'll be able to see all the different awards listed. So if you don't see a particular award and you have not received an email to set up your PMT account for that award, which if you already have a active PMT account, it should populate within that account. But if you're not seeing it in your account and you have another award that's missing, please contact the PMT help desk and we will troubleshoot what is going on there and make sure that you have access to all of the awards you should be reporting on. Is the answer yes to the question? Also apply for grants. Wait, sorry, I'm reading two questions at once. If we determine that the project will end prior to the period of performance end date, would we still select yes early? If you know that that is the last quarter that you're having grant funded activities occurring, you can select yes. I would work with your grant manager to make sure that that is the last time that you'll have grant funded activity. So basically the PMT, when you tell it that it is the final report, it's going to generate your final report. So it doesn't necessarily speak to, Just Grants in a way that it knows when your period of performance ends. So you kind of tell it that. So if you are ending your grant funded activity earlier than anticipated, and you will not be using grant funds for activity after a certain point, you can use that whatever last reporting period you are working on, you can say, yes, this is our final report with grant funded activity, and it'll help generate that final PMT for you. Let's see, is the answer yes to the question also apply for grants being extended or extensions being applied? So again, you will only say yes if you know that that is the last quarter that you are doing grant funded activity for that particular award. If you believe that there is going to be an extension coming, or that you're getting extended, you continue to say no. Now there have been situations, so if you report that it's your last quarter with funded activities and then you end up getting an extension after you've already submitted the PMT, you can ask the help desk to go back, and we can basically switch it and change it to no, and then you'll be able to continue reporting. So if that situation occurs where you actually receive an extension after that quarter that you've reported, just let us know, and we can fix that in the PMT. Or another scenario is maybe you didn't know that that was the last reporting period that you were going to have grant funded activity. And so you said no in the beginning, and then you get to the end and then realize, at the next reporting period that it really was the last one. We can go back and change it as well to say, nope, that was your final report. And then it'll generate the final report, because you will need that final report to close out in Just Grants. When you request for technical assistance, how long does that take, and how does that process look? When you contacted the PMT help desk, we are fairly responsive. It also depends on maybe the time of year that you're contacting the PMT help desk and the type of question. So if it's a quick need access to something or to unlock a report, it's usually fairly quick. If it's a more extensive question around how do I report certain measures and needs a little more one-on-one technical assistance, then they might send up that request to someone like me, and we can get on a call and work together through any reporting questions or challenges that you're having. So, and I would also say, during the regular period, it's fairly quick in response. I would say during reporting periods, that is when we have a higher volume of tickets, so it might take a little bit longer for a response, but we try and get to you as quickly as possible. So continuing on, for the missing or murdered Indigenous persons supplemental measures, this set of measures is actually going to be reported in the Just Grant system and not the performance measurement tool. So that is one big distinction I want to put up front. Next slide, please. So tribes and organizations that receive funding from OVC can use their funds to help MMIP by providing services to the family members of MMIP victims, generating awareness among community members in general, as well as individual cases, and collaborating with tribal, federal, state, and local officials to respond to MMIP cases. And here we have a link to the specific questionnaire. You can find it on the OVC website, along with the other performance measure questionnaires. But this is specific to the supplemental questions for MMIP. Next slide. So where you will report this, again, it is in Just Grants, not in the performance measurement tool, and it is under the performance management section, and then you will go to your specific performance report number. So when you are in your actual performance report, there will be a question set in the performance report, and it'll say OVC _ TV SSA _ MMIP, and you'll click that link, and it will come up with the set of questions for you. So when you're entering data into the question sets, it will again have that kind of reporting period information up front. And You will just hit continue on the bottom right corner to enter your data. Next slide. And then again, it'll have that kind of opening question. Did you provide any grant funded services to family members of missing Indigenous persons during the reporting period? Yes or no? And when you click yes, it will provide the rest of the questions. Again, this is in Just Grants. So tracking your grant funded activities, we want only OVC grant funded activities reported in the PMT and or Just Grants, depending on which measures you're working on. If you have multiple OVC awards, the grant funded activities conducted or services provided should be reported under the respective award. Information should not be duplicated across multiple awards. The best approach that we give is to follow the funding. So any activities or services provided by a given award's funds should be reported in the PMT under that award. And most importantly, please be consistent with your reporting. Select the approach that works best for your organization and data collection abilities, and document the process for future staff members. Next slide. We understand that sometimes it is difficult and you will need to prorate your data. So we have a couple different strategies that may work for your organization. And if you have any questions specifically on this, on the prorating guidance, you can contact the OVC performance management team for one-on-one support, and we can help work through that with you. So some suggested approaches that we have is to prorate based on staff salary, prorate based on the direct victim services budget, or prorate based on the total victim services budget. So there's a couple different ways you can do that. We can also provide resources and examples of what that would look like in reality. Next slide, please. So as I said, we have a ton of resources for questionnaires, recorded trainings, guidance packages that you can use for your reporting. Next slide. We also have really great dashboards that are publicly available on our website. So you can look at, again, this is high level information across all of the funding we have it for almost all of our programs. So we have a tribal specific data dashboard. So you can see at a high level what this looks like across the country. We have the option for one-on-one coaching sessions. So if you have if you have specific detailed questions or needs, we can jump on a call and work through that with you. And then we also host a number of webinars, as well as we have a handful of recorded trainings that are located on our website. And then we also have options for one-pagers. So if you would like a one-pager for your organization or your tribe's data, we can get together and talk about what that would look like if you want to look at one specific year and the activities that occurred during that year and the types of victims served and services provided, or if there are particular things you'd like to look at, maybe where things were located. We have a variety of different ways that we can showcase your data in quick one-pagers that are really useful when you're applying for other funding or want to tell your story in different ways and really highlight the data aspect of what you've been collecting. Next slide, please. And so here is a page. It has a variety of links for the different resources that we've talked about. So again, on the OVC website, you can find our performance measure page. We talk about the tribal specific reporting, this tribal specific reporting questionnaire, the supplemental measures. We have a handful of different recordings of different webinars that you can watch and then follow up with any questions. We also have a data template that you can use when you are collecting your data, and that will help you when you're ready for your quarterly reports. It'll all be there for you. We have a fillable PDF that you can use for data collection. And again, just links to all of our questionnaires on there. Next slide. So this is what our data collection tool looks like. So if you were trying to figure out how to manage all of the data and make sure it's collected in one location, this template you can download from our website, and it will actually has some formulas in there that as you report the individual level data in the different rows per person, it will sum up that information for you in the bottom. And then you can just use that cumulative information in the bottom to upload into your quarterly report. And so as you can see at the bottom, we have different tabs for each quarter. So that it keeps it separate as well, and you don't get it mixed up in which quarter you're reporting on. So this is another great resource that we encourage. And if you have questions or want to need help walking through this resource, just let us know. Next question. Yep. And then we have a handful of Just Grants resources as well, webinars, reference guides, training aids, infographics, all of that to kind of talk through the things that I spoke about today. So I'm going to pause right here and see if there's any other PMT specific questions that I could respond to. Someone said one pager. Yes, please. Please send an email to the help desk or contact your grant manager asking about it, and they will connect you to me and we can walk through that. Let's see, is the template and fillable PDF in the previous links? They are in the links. Well, maybe if they're not in the links right above your question, you can find them on the OVC website under the performance measure page for the tribal section. All of them are available on the website. And with that, I believe that concludes my portion. So I will hand this off to Elsie. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ashley. What good information. I love that people had questions. I think it's great. So on the next two slides is contact information for sam.gov, grants.com, and just grants.gov. And the OVC PMT help desk and just grants contact information. And lastly, we want to thank you for your time and attention today.